Very pleased to be joined here at Blogging the Boys by the one and only, the dashing, the debonair, the hardest working person at SB Nation. I say that as somebody who is employed by the place myself. From Cincy Jungle and 500 other places, it is the one and only Jason Marcum. Jason, thank you so much for venturing over to BTB this week.
Thank you for having me on.
Um, what's the longest amount of time you're ever away from your computer in a given day? I'm just kind of curious. As somebody who, does so much for SB Nation, I feel like you are never, more than, I'm going to say 90 feet away from your computer.
Well, thankfully, I have a dog that I walk probably about 5-6 times a day around the block. So thankfully, I have that to get away.
I don't think I've ever learned your dog's name. What's your dog's name?
Rello. He's a 11-year-old pit bull.
Oh my, Mello is his name?
Rello.
Oh, Rello. That is very cool. Well, Rello is a good boy. And that's really what matters the most. We could just talk about Rello if you want. I mean, like,
yeah.
You getting Rello anything for Christmas? You know what I mean? Like, what's the,
Struggling a little because he doesn't really like dog bones. He likes pig ears. You know those little pig ears you can buy like Walmart. He loves those, but they're kind of like a little choke hazard. So I'm like, trying to figure out a good safe one to get him for Christmas.
Yeah, I have two dogs, and the older one, Bear, he doesn't like toys. You know what I mean? It's the strangest thing. Like, he just is like, this is cool, but he's kind of got an old man spirit. He's like, the other, our other little puppy, Honey, she plays with everything, but he's like, you enjoy. This couch is nice and comfortable. You know what I mean? So, I wonder how he and Rello would get along. You know what I mean?
Right. They just lay on the dog bed together and just sleep all day.
Exactly. Jason runs Cincy Jungle, our Cincinnati Bengals website here at SB Nation, which means you have had a very interesting last few years. You and I have spoken several times, and the Cowboys and Bengals have played. I don't know if you've realized this. The Cowboys have won 5 games in a row against the Bengals. I hadn't quite put that together until kind of getting ready for this. And every time I learn so much about the Bengals, and it's such a weird operation to me. Like, the Bengals have become this like now behemoth that sort of arrived and nobody expected, but everybody respects. Like, it's a weird sort of thing, which makes the fact that they're 4-8 right now all the more confusing. What has this season been like? Because from afar, I think from afar, you probably look at Cowboys fans and are like, oh, they're eating each other alive. You know what I mean? They hate everything. They're mad at the world. I don't really get that vibe from Bengals fans. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's not great. It's not great. And a lot of people just have been frustrated with Zach and just how the teams run. And Lou Anarumo, I saw a stat today, he's been here since 2019, and he's actually had only one defense that finished even above average in DVOA. But people always remember those great postseason games he called. But people forget he had Jesse Bates, who was effectively the Joe Burrow of the defense. I mean, those runs in 2021 and 22 that Bates had were incredible, and they just fallen off a cliff without him.
Yeah, I mean, I used to say, and I think I might be ready to eat this a little bit. That's Bear, if you can hear him. But I used to say that Josh Allen got a lot of run out of that 13 seconds playoff loss. Right, like we as a football society, we made a big old deal. Like, he got a lot of love, and that bought him a really long leash, to stick with our dog theme here. Because oh man, poor Josh Allen and the Bills, they almost won, but Mahomes and Kelsey, they're so great in 13 seconds, blah blah. I feel like the Bengals got a lot more love than usual for a team that loses the Super Bowl. Generally, the team loses the Super Bowl, it's just kind of like, oh, they're losers, we don't care about them. But the Bengals, I almost feel like nobody cared that the Rams won the Super Bowl. I said this to Michael Peterson, our colleague, once. Like, do you know anybody except for Bengals fans that like really was mad or upset or felt any way about the Rams winning the Super Bowl? It was so inconsequential. You know what I mean? And so the Bengals have become this team, despite, to your point, I guess, some legitimate data and legitimate evidence, that people still regard. Like, I in my mind would have regarded them as, like, I would have regarded Lou Anarumo as this like amazing mind, but he did kind of fall off relative to like head coaching interviews and things like that.
Yeah, it's funny how that worked out. Yeah, he almost got the Cardinals job, but he got passed over, and it's just been going bad ever since. And they've got players. I mean, you look at their defense. They got Geno Stone, they got Sheldon Rankins. Obviously Trey Hendrickson's still there. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt. We've seen all the big moments Pratt's had in the postseason. And Cam Taylor-Britt was a shutdown corner last year, and they've just fallen off a cliff. Like, what happened? It's so you got to look at the man at the top. Lou, it's like he's not making the right adjustments, and it's just sad to watch how how far this defense has fallen when they still have the talent there. Even though Rankins has been out, he's had injuries. He has an illness now that's cost him 2 games. So, but even without them, it's like there's no excuse for the defense to just get eviscerated by the Steelers and Russell Wilson, who just they can barely reach the end zone as it is. Like most of their games are just kicking field goals, and
Right.
yet they just had like an all-time game, and it's like it's just crazy to watch.
It does. That's the part I think. It's what it's like when you're at a place where like half the fan base wants to tank and half the fan base wants to win out. Like I'm sure you went through that in what was it 2019 that led to the #1 overall pick, right? Like it's a weird juxtaposition that you kind of find yourself in. And there are some Cowboys fans that are sort of hoping that the team can find its way into a third win in a row this week against Cincinnati, and that all kind of rests on offensive success because the Bengals have been so poor on defense. Is that something that we are just overreacting to that just happened last week against Pittsburgh, or is the defense truly something that can be had?
They've had a few good performances. Like early in the year, they did okay. They did pretty well in that game against the Chiefs, except for that late pass interference. Other than that, they did pretty good. So I mean,
they've
had good performances. But a lot of them have been against like the Giants or the Raiders. Other than that Chiefs game, they haven't had a really great defensive performance against a good team. So you look at the Cowboys, they've got all their injuries. Cooper Rush is leading the charge now. I feel like they should, at the very least, be able to score about 24 points against this defense. Anything less than that would be a disappointment.
That's a good bar. That's a good bar. That's why we have you around. That and Rello, obviously. But I mean, like that's good information to know. You mentioned kind of, I guess, accountability or responsibility for Lou Anarumo at the guy at the top, the guy at the tippy top, Zach Taylor. Have you seen we're recording this on Wednesday. Have you seen the Daniel Jeremiah clip that's making the rounds today? Wait.
No.
So he was on I think it was Kevin Clark's podcast, and he was asked about Ben Johnson. Obviously, Ben Johnson's the talk of the town. Everybody wants Ben Johnson, blah blah. And Daniel, I didn't watch the whole clip. I just saw the kind of tweet that was with it. But so I'm sort of really spark noting this. But his take, Daniel Jeremiah's, was that if he was Ben Johnson, he would wait out the Bengals job. Just understanding, hey, look, because I mean, if you're whoever it is, let's call it Ben Johnson right now, obviously, would you rather have the Bears job or Joe Burrow, even if it's next year? Like, do you think that Zach Taylor, I mean, because again, it feels like Lou Anarumo might be the scapegoat this year, at least, and might buy Zach Taylor another year. Obviously, Bengals ownership is pretty slow to any level of change, which has been a real talking point for a long time now. Like, is Zach Taylor somebody to be afraid of? Because like the Cowboys going to a game against when they went into the Commanders game, which they won against Dan Quinn, I was petrified that Dan Quinn was just going to expose them. It was going to outduel Mike McCarthy. Lo and behold, that didn't happen. I don't really feel like Zach Taylor offers a discernible advantage these days.
Yeah, if you've watched him, like, the first 2 years of his career, he went 6-25-1. I mean, most coaches don't survive that. He happened to, and they went on that miracle run the next year. And they had a good, run the next year, too, where they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. So that bought him a lot of goodwill. I mean, they could lose out and probably lose every game by 30, and he'll still be back. It's going to – I think, as bad as it's been, I think it's still going to take a lot to get Lou Anarumo out because it's just how slow this franchise operates. You just got to live with it. But, if you look at Zach's schemes, it just doesn't seem like he's doing, anything really stands out. It's just all Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins,
Right.
It's like, look at Joe Mixon. He's tearing it up in Houston now, but I mean, he never looked like that in Cincinnati under Zach. So what's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, I would offer like CJ Uzama never really took off. You know what I mean? There's one, you could kind of prove that point a million different ways. From a point scoring perspective, this just happened as we're recording. So you might need to get busy soon. So apologies if so. Evan McPherson was just placed on injured reserve. Yeah. Was that like not shocking? That was like kind of obvious that was going to happen.
Well, Garofalo reported that earlier today, but yeah, it did come out of the blue when he reported that because it's like, and it's still like, from what I've seen, it's still unclear. Like, how long has he had this injury? Is it something that maybe has affected him throughout the season?
Right.
Because groins, that's one of those injuries that can be tricky. They can linger for a whole season. So it'll be interesting to find out the details of like how long he's been dealing with that.
That seems like the just kind of general MO with the Bengals this year is you don't really know. Like, you can't really explain. Like, you look at it and Joe Burrow's tearing it up. Jamar Chase is tearing it up, to your point. How is this team 4-8? I mean, the Cowboys have more wins than them. And I mean, like, I hate the Cowboys. You know what I mean? Like, it's really shocking to me that the Bengals are they had become, and I think they had earned this place to be this team that we gave the benefit of the doubt to over and over and over again. And I think they've burnt up some of that. I will be interested to see how we evaluate them relative to 2025. And some of that depends on if Zach Taylor's back or whatever. But I mean, what is the crux of the issue in your mind, like, that has been part of this whole downfall?
Well, the defense is the biggest part, but one thing that's really hurt them is a lot of these close games, they just make dumb mistakes on both sides of the ball. Like late in the game, it was in late in the third quarter against the Ravens. They were up 21-7. Chase Brown has that fumble. The game just sky falls from there on them. And the pass interference against the Chiefs. It's like you had them beat, and just all these little mistakes they keep making. And it's not just the defense, but they make enough of them on offense. Like against the Steelers, they had one fumble returned for a touchdown, another that they took and went down the field and scored. So it's and they invent new ways to lose like every week, it feels like, and that's usually the sign of the coach. Like you're trying to plug one hole, then this one leaks, and then you just keep trying. You can't keep them all plugged. That's usually the head coach.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, because of who Joe Burrow is and what he's shown, I feel like you can't just, this isn't even Carson Palmer and obviously Andy Dalton. You can't just let Marvin Lewis stick around, so to speak here. Like, it's too precious of a thing. But I don't know. I mean, maybe the Bengals, will just bring Zach Taylor back. To that point, so we agree the Bengals are bad. They're amazing. Like the way I've been wording it all week is like they seem to do 85% of things right, but they do the most like critical 15% of things wrong. And that's enough to sink or to cause the holes in the boat to kind of pop up that they just can't plug up as they go along. Were you shocked when you saw the opening line for this game?
Yeah, touchdown. I'm like, what? Because
so
the Cowboys are still in the playoff hunt. I mean, they are. I mean, granted, it'd be hard to do this, but I think they're in win out, and they'd probably make it. So
I don't think that they could win out. Their
schedule's right. Too tough. Yeah.
Well, no, but like they need some help. They, like, for example, if they did win out and if Philly lost out, they could win the division. That's still a possible. But if they won out, I think they'd probably pick up the third wildcard spot. Surely, just kind of based on variance across the NFL. But for anyone who's unaware, the opening line from our friends at FanDuel was 6.5. Cincinnati favored. That has gone down to 5.5. So it seems like a lot of people, thought that was a little bit too much. And look, again, I don't know that you know this. Prior to last week on Thanksgiving Day, the Cowboys had gone, this is a real stat, Jason. I'm not making this up because I like you, Orello. They had gone 6 games in a row at home where they had a 20-point deficit. Think about how difficult that is to accomplish. And they did it. That's amazing. Like that's 6 times in a row in the building where this game will be played. They had a 20-point deficit. And cool, they beat the New York Giants last week by 7, mind you. And now all of a sudden, people are feeling themselves a little bit. And I think that that's somewhat fair, but I still find it amazing that Dallas, I don't think the Cowboys are a better team than the Bengals, despite what their records say. I think that the Bengals are just particularly snake bitten this year. But that being said, it's hard to be a 6.5-point dog at home at any point, like however bad you are, whoever you're playing. But to be a 6.5-point dog to a 4-8 team is a really big sign of the times. Like, did that give you any kind of confidence that the Bengals could win this game?
No, not really. I mean, I think they'll win. I do think they'll win, but to be that big of a favorite, I don't agree with.
Do you want them to win? Like, what's the like, kind of temperature of people that you've seen? You obviously have a better pulse on Bengals fans than anybody.
It's getting to that point where it's like it does kind of feel like maybe it would be better off for them to just lose out and, make big changes. Because they're set up to win, 3 or 4 games now. They get the Cowboys this week, the Browns, the Titans. I mean, they could easily finish like I think it'll be tough to finish 9-8, but they could definitely finish 8-9 because, I mean, they get the Steelers in the finale and they may have their playoff spot clinched and rest of their starters. Like that's how they got that cheap win against the Browns last season. So it's like, I mean, they're set up to, put some wins together down the stretch. And you just wonder at this point, is that a good thing? Like, is that just going to give them the excuse they need to just keep everything the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how we're all the same. You know what I mean? Like, like we all have the same fears and insecurities about our teams that like that the same thing will happen. And that's where like I think the Cowboys have a better playoff probability just because of the state of the NFC than the Bengals do relative to the AFC. But I mean, it's just it's funny. Like we all hate the same things about our teams. It's why teams being like the Chiefs is so unfair. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have no idea what it's like to truly live the way we live because we're down here in the dumps. A stat that I used to love to say was that Tony Romo never played a game. I don't know if you know this, where he was mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? Like it's not really representative of anything. And he did get hurt and miss most of 2 seasons, so that kind of helps. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if he'd been healthy, he would have. But it is true that he never played a game where he was mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. Dak Prescott has. Joe Burrow will. There is something I think to like we run to blame Lou Anarumo or Zach Taylor. Like, is Joe Burrow at all at fault in your mind, or is he being that weighed down by Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo, and I guess his off the field purchases for movie props that serve as functional motor vehicles as well?
I mean, Burrow could be perfect, that would be helpful. But, like everyone, I mean, look at Mahomes. He's not had the greatest season. He's made plenty of mistakes, but they keep winning, so people ignore them. Joe Burrow, throws for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he has a 1 pick or 1 fumble, and guys like Shannon Sharp are like, see, Burrow's fault too. And it's like, so in that sense, yeah, he will. Like the Chiefs loss, he had a fumble, strip sack that was returned for a touchdown. That happened last week against the Steelers. So he has made mistakes that have cost the Bengals, but it's like when you're putting up 30 plus points a game, and you should be allowed to have, 1 or 2 mistakes.
Sure.
And that not cost you the win.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel for him in that sense. And that's why I was wondering, like, if some people, like, I think back to like 2020, Dak Prescott was putting up some gaudy numbers and everybody accused him of like stat padding and garbage stats, and that kind of stuff gets annoying. Like, it doesn't feel that way at all for Joe Burrow, but I was curious for kind of your take. So it seems like you're picking the Bengals then to win this game.
Yeah.
Give me,
I'm thinking it'll be like 27-24.
Wow. Okay. Now, because the Cowboys have won 2 games in a row, as you know, obviously. They beat the Commanders, which was kind of a cool win. You know what I mean? Certainly looks a lot better after last week when they dismantled Tennessee. They beat the Giants, and it's really hard to feel like you did anything, if you beat the Giants these days. But that being said, like, if the Cowboys are successful, how should they feel? Like, how should Cowboys fans feel? Like, how should we feel late Monday night, Tuesday morning, in your opinion, if the Cowboys were to beat this Bengals team? Is it a much to do about nothing, like, oh, the Bengals stink? Or is it like, hey, this is actually a better team than 4-8 would indicate, so you should feel pretty good about it?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a win they should feel good about because, you beat, again, Bengals have all the talent in the world to beat anyone in the NFL. I mean, they had the Chiefs beat, they had the Ravens beat twice. I mean, they can go head-to-head with just about, maybe not the Eagles, but, But
we don't compliment the Eagles around
right. But yeah, no, the Cowboys absolutely feel good about beating them, and I think they would be 6-7, or what are they now?
Yeah, they'd be 6-7, and then they'd be they visit Carolina next week. So I mean, like, you'd be really dreaming about like, holy crap, now we can get to 500 type thing. You know what I mean? And that really speaks to like how far we've fallen, that in the middle of December, we'd be super excited about 500. You know what I mean? But I mean, still, it'd be pretty cool. But it all rests on this win, obviously.
For sure.
Interesting. You're aware of the Simpsons-ness happening with this game?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you? I'm not a Simpsons. I've never seen any Simpsons episodes. Are you? I wanted to ask you this. Are you a Simpsons fan?
Oh yeah. I watched it a ton of growing up. I still do. I'm Bob's Burgers guy now though.
Okay, so I didn't want to offer this to anybody else because you're my friend and you mean a lot to me, and I love the work you do, not just at Cincy Jungle, but again all over the SB Nation universe. I pledge to you, Jason, that I will watch an episode of The Simpsons before this game so that I can kind of feel like I'm a part of it. That's really what I want more than anything. I just want to feel like I'm a part of this. But I don't want to just like pull up Disney Plus and like pick one. Like I need a professional to tell me which Simpsons episode to watch. So what, like,
man, start from the beginning.
Yeah. No, but like I need like the Simpsons. I'm not gonna watch. It's like there's like 500 Simpsons episodes. I'm not gonna watch them all before Monday night. So I need you to tell me the one. Like you get one shot to hook me on the Simpsons. And if you don't want to answer now, you can take some time and Slack it to me later, and I'll put it in the YouTube description. But if you feel confident, then you can tell me, and I pledge to you that I will watch it before the game on Monday.
I love horror, so I'm very partial to the Treehouse of Horror episodes they do every Halloween. Those are fantastic.
But I need one, Jason. You can't tell me like you can't put it in my hands to choose. You have to pick a singular episode from it.
I'd have to slack it to you, man. Yeah, I
Okay.
can't on the spot. I can't think of just a go-to one.
Okay, let me Google this while we're here. This is a Variety article, so you know it's legit. This is the best Simpsons episodes ranked. So let me just read you this, give you some like material to work with, and you can be like, oh, let's do that one.
Okay.
It goes in ascending order. I don't even know what the Treehouse of Horror is, to be honest with you. But number 30 is the Treehouse of Horror 31. So that's a pretty popular thing. Sounds like the Treehouse of Horror. Number 1 on this list, this is list is 3 years old now, is Homer at the Bat, season 3, episode 17. Do you know what this is?
At the Bat?
At the Bat. That's what it's called. Homer at the Bat.
Yeah, I think I remember that. That was a good one.
Number 2 is Marge versus the Monorail.
I vaguely remember that one.
These are old. These are like season 4, season 6. I need something that looks a little bit more HD. You know what I mean? Like the Springfield Files is number 7. Is this a good episode?
I'm guessing that was a play on the X-Files.
All of these are really old. Does The Simpsons not have a good new episode? Like, what's the deal here?
The newer stuff, they make a lot of cool shorts, like with the Marvel and Star Wars. They're like 4 or 5 minutes long. Those are pretty funny, but they're not a full episode.
How about number 29 is the Ha-Hod couple? Ha-Hod couple?
I'm not good at remembering like actual episode names.
You know what? This is what we'll do. I'll do a Treehouse of Horror episode. That was where your instincts went. So I'll do a Treehouse. I'll do that one that it suggested. What was it? Hang on.
31, I think.
So are they all numbered? Is this like a Super Bowl thing? Like it's like, oh, Treehouse of Horror, or like 93 or whatever.
I think so.
So this is season 32, episode 4. And I'm just going to read you the description, okay? Because we've come this far. You know what I mean? So it says the animated series has churned out more than 30 Halloween episodes, paying homage to. And by the way, our friends at Homage have a special thing going on with this game. By the way, anyway, paying homage to notable pop culture titles and the spooky. The 2020 episode is the strongest in recent years, as it mixed the more recent an homage to Into the Spider-Verse, the incredible movie, and a short about the election. Oh, the 2020 election. This sounds like quite the episode, with the more evergreen, a time loop story and a tribute to Toy Story. Toy Story also got a game like this.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we found the winner, Jason. Treehouse of Horror 31 is our winner. So congratulations to it. I will watch it. Is there anything I have to know? How to watch The Simpsons, in your opinion?
If you've never watched it, maybe watch an episode like a normal episode, because like the characters might be out of sorts on the Treehouse Horror. Like you won't like, there'll be different people, so you might not get it as well.
Okay. You went down the rabbit hole with me, and I appreciate that. So Jason suggested Treehouse of Horror and picked the Bengals to win this game. Anything else you want to offer? Your thoughts on Kentucky signing day for everyone to hear officially?
Kentucky football, it's doing pretty good considering the past year of a season they just had, and not the greatest outlook going forward. But hey, they're still selling recruits, and I think they have a top 35-ish class right now, so they're doing okay there.
Do you miss John Calipari at all?
No. No, it was time for a change. You know, sometimes it just gets a little stale on both sides. It was time to have a new voice.
That's honestly, I completely agree with you. Especially after like a chaotic end like that. And that should be to kind of land this plane how Cowboys fans or Bengals fans feel if they move on to whoever, whatever the case may be, whether it's, Ben Johnson, Bill Belichick, whatever. Like sometimes a change is helpful. You know what I mean? Like, even when it feels like, how could we possibly be anything different than John Calipari? You know what I mean? You can. Life goes on.
Absolutely.
We're all just living in our own Treehouse of Horror. You know what I mean? So, any other movie or TV suggestions before we walk out of here?
Oh, Bob's Burgers, if you haven't watched that.
Is that like your show? That's like your cup of tea?
That's my comfort show, yes.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Then I will say, since you didn't ask, I am trying to finish Superstore. You ever check this out?
Yeah, I saw like the first season of that.
Yeah, I just started the last season, and speaking of 2020, it takes place during like the initial onset of COVID. So it's everyone's like dealing with all the initial protocols and things like that. So it's an interesting thing to look back on now 4 years ago. Jason Marcum from Cincy Jungle, you're the best. Give Rello a big hug, like the biggest hug possible, and the biggest good boy, like scruff behind the ears and all that stuff, because Rello deserves it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out, man. Enjoy the week, enjoy the game, and if we don't see you soon, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, sir, and Merry Christmas.